Hey everybody, welcome back to Dig In with Dad. Today we're making pork tenderloin and we're going to be making it with some apples and some onions for dinner. Pork tenderloin sounds like a bit of a fancy meat. It's really not, and it's actually a pretty forgiving meat to cook. So we're going to show you how to do that. We got ours at Costco, usually come in a 2-pack. And the good part also here is it's actually pretty cheap. So let's get to it. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up our package, rinse off the meat, and pat it dry with some paper towels. Then we're going to put a dry rub on it, okay? Let's get to it. Okay, so we've got our meat patted dry here, and one thing you'll want to watch out for, you'll hear the term silver skin. We're not really going to trim it a lot. I find that these ones that we get from Costco are pretty clean for the most part, but if you see some kind of big chunks of fat like this, just pull them off, right? And if you need to use, a little bit of a knife, just go ahead and do that. The pork tenderloin is a pretty lean cut of meat to begin with, so you shouldn't have too much of this going on here. But a few little pieces, there's another one, right? Just very gently pull those off with your knife. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to get them all, but get the big ones. All right, after we have dried everything off, cleaned it all up, we're just going to do a quick dry rub, and this is just salt and pepper, nothing fancy. We're going to be adding flavors to the meat later on through different stages, so we don't need to get crazy with a dry rub here. So just do both sides. Also, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 425. All right, so the only special equipment that we're going to be using today is an oven-safe skillet or frying pan, right? We've got a cast iron one that we're going to be using. It doesn't have to be cast iron. It can be any kind of metal, but you don't want any of the rubber handles or plastic handles or anything like that on there because it'll melt when you put it in the oven. So, we've got our dry rub on. We've got everything patted dry. Oven is preheated. What we're going to do now is we're going to heat up a little bit of oil in our pan. Let's get to that. All right, so we have our pan on the burner warming up here. We're just going to put a little bit of oil, warm up that oil. We don't need a whole lot. We don't want it to be swimming in oil, but you do want a little bit so it's not sticking so much to the bottom of the pan. Fun tip, remember your oven mitts when you're handling cast iron because the whole thing gets hot. So I'm just going to tilt it around just to get the oil all around, right? Something like that. And we'll give that another couple minutes just to heat up. Okay, now that our oil is good and hot, what we're going to do is we're just going to put our meat in and we're looking to brown it on all sides or sear it. That's a good sound. Now you want to try and not disturb the meat, just put it in and just leave it alone for a few minutes, right? This is going to be 5-10 minutes as you go through all the different sides. So patience is a virtue here. Okay, we're giving it a few minutes. Remember our oven mitt. See, we've just got a little bit of color on the small one here. We could leave it longer if we want. Totally up to you. All right, and then we're going to let this side go for another few minutes as well. Make sure we get our edges too. All right, and once you've got these to a good color, what you're going to do is you're just going to take them out of the pan, put them on a plate to the side for now, just a few minutes. Okay, so we've got our meat out. Now we're going to add in some other things here. We're going to start again, just a little bit of oil. You don't want that pan to be too dry. Again, just a spoonful, not a lot. And to that oil, we're going to add our apples and our onions.
Boom, bam, bop, pow.
We're just going to let this cook down just for a few minutes, right? We want those onions to get a little bit soft. I'm going to turn that heat down just a little bit. We don't need it up to searing temperature anymore. We've been cooking these onions down and the apples. They look great. Come on in, check this out. That's what we're looking for. Okay, now that we've got our onions cooked down, what we're going to do is we're going to add just a little bit of seasoning to this, and then we're going to put our meat back in. Everybody goes in the oven for a big party. Start with a little bit of thyme. Oh, real quick, we're going to want to deglaze the pan here. So I'm going to use vegetable stock. You guys can use whatever you have. Chicken, beef, water, whatever you got. Fine. There we go. And remember, deglazing the pan just brings up all those little flavor bits that are kind of stuck to the bottom of the pan. Oh, they taste amazing. So we want those to come up into our sauce. Then we're just going to want to nestle our pork back in. You know, take some of the onions and take some of the apples and maybe, you know, over top of the meat, that kind of stuff. You really want the flavors to all hang out together. And sometimes you'll just throw the food outside the pan like I did and be angry with yourself. All right, and then our last step is we're just going to put a little bit of mustard on that pork. I'm using Dijon Mustard. You can use whatever you want. Just a little squiggle on top. Use the back of my tongs here and just kind of, you know, spread it all over the meat as best you can. Right? Doesn't need to be perfect. All right, there we go. So now we're going to go into the oven with the whole pan. We're going to need both oven mitts for this one. All right, and we're going to get that in there for about 15 to 20 minutes. The timing is pretty flexible on this one, but what you need to use is an instant read thermometer, and you're looking for a temperature on your meat of 145, okay? We'll come back then and we'll see how we did. And we're done. So we've come back, we've tested our meat. We're at just above 145, so we're safe. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to let it rest. Very important, let the meat rest, otherwise your juice is going to run all over your cutting board. Meat will be a little bit dry. We're going to have ours with a little bit of rice, some steamed veggies, and you can have it with whatever you want though, right? Mix it with some potatoes, up to you. We'll come back and we'll show you the finished product at the end, but enjoy.